Well, welcome everybody. Hey, thanks for attending our webinar. And who hasn't felt the effects of the Great Resignation in 2022? We're starting to hear about a new phenomenon going on. Get ready for a new phrase, the Great Inspection. What is the Great Inspection? It's more scrutiny on net new hires or net new projects, software projects, go lives, what have you. What Taos has done today is assembled a really strong, diverse panel of experts who've done it from the IT side, the security side, the operator side, and actually the justification side and the sales side. I think their perspectives were really welcome at a time when you need more ammunition to get your job done, because you want to finish your projects no matter what economic challenges get thrown your way. So my job as Ken Grohe, Chief Revenue Officer of Taos, is to introduce all the folks at the panel and get us going into this really important topic that was very timely. First one, I want to give a quick introduction out to Georgiana. Georgiana is from VMware. And Georgiana, could you kind of comment, besides introducing yourself, can I give a comment when the first time you really felt something change in the economy and more scrutiny going on in your life?
Yeah, absolutely. So thanks, Ken. Thanks for having me. As you said, I'm focused around value realization at VMware and come from a startup focused around customer value management. And I think as far as just recognizing that there was something going on in the economy, besides seeing it on LinkedIn many times a day, I think for me, even in my personal life, you saw this quick shift where around me, houses were for sale and they were off the market in a day or two. And that has kind of stopped, and you've seen how that happens really quickly. Certainly from a peer standpoint, the hiring market and the job market shifted dramatically almost overnight. So, crypto is down if anyone is invested in cryptocurrency. So I think just lots of things in the world that are kind of giving us insights into a changing economic market.
Really awesome for your take on it. Appreciate it. Now, on the other side of the house, we're actually justifying from the IT side. I've had the pleasure of working with Omar for many years. Works at App Dynamics, now owned by Cisco. Omar, when did you have the first inflection point that when you're going for projects, you're getting more scrutiny? You're used to it. You're a big fan of ROI, not to reveal too much, but
right.
In your introduction, kind of comment what the economy is doing to you, even at a bigger company.
Right. Well, I guess, at a high level, kind of in answering the first question regarding the signals, right? I think we all felt them like from a personal level, the housing market was brought up, but, the other things, right? General inflation has one piece. And then, as we kind of pivot this information we're seeing in our personal lives and seeing how is this going to influence and affect our workplace strategies, we realize that, supply chain issues are very real. I work in an IT operations as well as workplace management or side of the organization. And we see these things even outside of our offering, right? Like how we build and service our employees are impacted directly by these changes, right? So kind of pivoting and talking, you mentioned ROI. I've been a big fan of using ROI, return on investment, as a way of measuring our portfolio of how we do our investments with regarding our IT portfolios. And this situation is one where I would say, to coin a phrase from the gaming community, min-max, right? You look at the things that you can minimize in your portfolio and look for the things you can maximize, right? So for me, that is doubling down on automation. AI is a really hot topic, and it is continually provide value in spades for our organization. So for me, min-maxing is doubling down on that sphere, and hopefully, that will help as we kind of navigate this uncertain transition.
Great takes. Thank you, Omar. Now, Omar is part of a company that was acquired by a bigger company, much like Taos was acquired by IBM. So our perspectives are very similar. I wouldn't mind a smaller perspective, a perspective that maybe from a proprietor's type standpoint. So Elaine, would you care to comment? I've got a chance to work with you. You actually one of our speakers from our most highly attended. We have over 600 attendees and registered last time you spoke at. So can you comment from your perspective as kind of a proprietor and founder of your company that navigates these waters? Kind of do an introduction of what your take on the economy is, or at least what changing your life, please?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, one, of course, just on the personal side, I have to echo, right? We just go to fill up our gas tanks and you're like, wow, what just happened, right? So that was on the personal side. That was, quickly overnight, we knew something was going on. But on the work side, so I work, as you know, in the recruiting and sourcing on demand space. And we had clients that we were working with and we're still working with that were really struggling to find talent. And what happens is when we have this point of where we're getting to full employment in the market, right, where people are getting jobs, they have jobs, it's hard to find talent. What comes with that is this wage demand, which tends to exacerbate inflation. So just seeing that on the work side also was a trigger and an indication that something was coming.
Incredible. Thank you. Appreciate you. Incredible that you're starting a business and driving a business from that perspective. Thank you so much. Hey, a couple quick comments out there. Queenie, yes, we are showing the presentation. We put it in slideshow mode. Thank you for going through that, Jason. Appreciate it. Next up, I think, Carrie, thanks for calling in from the road. Yes, we'll record and send it to all attendees. Thank you, Stephen Bennett, for that comment as well. So I'm glad that we're able to get recording because a lot of executives want to get your feedback for attending. And also, Jody Fraley, good morning to you as well. And I know some people, this is the afternoon, but I think you're West Coast based. So Jody, thanks for attending as part of it. But without further ado, I've had the privilege of knowing this gentleman for well over a half decade. He's a friend of the family, great person, great role model, CTO of Barracuda, Mr. Fleming Shee. Could you do a quick introduction, but you really don't need one given what I just gave, but how are things different for how you're able to build product, how you differently to serve customers? Out of all the CTOs I know, you probably spend more time with customers than anybody else. Can you tell me what things have changed from either at your company or what the customer is demanding from you as a CTO?
Absolutely. Well, thank you for having me, Ken. It's great to be here and talking about this topic. Yes, CTO at Barracuda Networks. Have been around for close to 20 years, have been with the company for roughly about 18. So I've gone through several, rise and falls in terms of economy. So the way I have identified the situation is that when there are basically concerns about cybersecurity is one of those hottest topics, regardless of recession, and you can see cybercrimes happen all the time. So the key here is, you can see our customers running low on resources. They're not able to get talent, and they're not able to defend themselves. So a lot of times, when I start to see the signal, it's not they're spending on just buying tools, but they're looking for help. A lot of times it's human resources. A lot of times it's talent and skills, which is really hard to come by, especially in cybersecurity world. So definitely a key indicator. You can see a lot of MSPs are doing very well because they're able to provide services beyond just having products, into customers' hands, but they're actually giving them the help recovering from, a ransomware attack or data breach, right? So those are the signals that I see that I know, the folks out there, the customers out there, the prospects out there are facing challenges in getting the right type of talent and skills in hand to fight cyber crimes. Yeah.
Well, thanks, Fleming. It's a good time to have tech talent on the bench, I guess.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, appreciate it, Fleming. Your insights are always spot on. Hey, I tell you what, we're going to go to a survey, online survey. So if you don't mind, can you please participate in the poll now? And just a question. There's a little bit of join as far as just go to slido.com as far as join that as far as live polling. We're going to have a question in just a second because we don't think just the 4 or 5 panelists are the only ones that have all the answers on that. So are you modifying your spending on future cloud projects? So you have different couple of choices. Please, if you could log them in right now, that would be great. We'll give just a half a minute for those to be logged. Great. And we're going to be able to give results of that as a follow-up to the whole webinar. Oh, here they are. Great. 100% are expanding. That's a good result. That's a good result. Maybe the impact that we're seeing in the news and we're feeling as we fill up the gas tank hasn't affected everybody else. Now it's going back to 50-50. Great. And when we'll have the final results, we'll follow up as far as sending it to everybody as far as the overall recording. So it looks like 75%, based on the population of the people voting right now, are keeping things on track, and some are delaying. Okay, I tell you what, second question I'd like to throw at everybody. I'll start, I think in this opinion, I think we'll start with Elaine. What in your career or within your organization in the past have you learned from that you can give advice to folks that are in similar positions as yours as you go into economic crisis that may have not lived through these in the past? Any advice or adages or advice there, Elaine?
Yeah, and I love that this is coming right after the poll, because my feeling on this is that it's a balance of efficiency and innovation. So I'm not surprised to see the results. I would say, so like two-pronged approach. So when we're looking at efficiency is, what is core to the business? Like, what are your non-negotiables that you have to continue to do? So that's, how do we talk about, we said keeping on track, right? Core to the business, non-negotiable. And I was glad to see that it wasn't 100% just there, because at the same time, it's also what is going to keep you relevant, right? Where is that point of innovation? And it can't be everything. So it's thinking really strategically around what are the one or two things that we have to do now to make sure that we're still relevant when we come out on the other side of this. So that would be my recommendation, is this kind of two-pronged approach of a balance of efficiency and innovation.
Great perspective. Thank you. On the other side of the house, Omar, you've gone through small company, be acquired by a bigger company, and thrived in both environments. Can you talk about your career, maybe a specific year, a specific event, without getting into too much details? You had to go through the inflection point.
Right. Yeah, right. So, we're talking at the high level, economic uncertainty. And throughout my career, we especially in an operations realm, IT operations, there's times when there are budget cuts, right? But there's also, at the other side of that, there's investment opportunities, right? And really, to echo what's been said, it really comes down to focus and purpose, right? Figuring out what are the places where you can invest and where are the places you need to make those cost reductions, right? And I've seen, a lot of times it becomes a staffing question, right? Flat headcount for a fiscal cycle where and I said this earlier, where we invest in tools to improve efficiency, right? IT and IT operations are one of those platforms that help enable their business enabling function. So we really try to look at places where you can continue to invest. The poll was enlightening because I think, as I'm seeing, is that people have drifted and seeing that investments in cloud are one of those things that are very important, that are one of those efficiencies, right? Moving from on-prem data centers to the cloud and investing there is, if you ask me, is one of those things you should be doing core, right? It provides that efficiency benefit that you're going to see when you're in areas of economic uncertainty.
Thank you. Solid takes. And then Fleming, if you could, only because I used to work alongside of you, I've seen the company you work for, and you've been over there over a decade. I've seen you move from the physical world of appliances to virtual appliances, to cloud, to actually participating in the marketplace, to actually leading the charge in microservices. So you're always ahead of the curve. Can you comment on some inflection points in your own career? And you can see with the quick chart here, just showing where the U.S. economy is going through some inflection points, and the leading economic indicators are indicating that we might have stormy waters ahead. But Fleming, can you give some personal adages, please?
Absolutely. First of all, we did, go through multiple transformations, right? So Barracuda offered appliances for cybersecurity needs in the past. It's very different in today's world. And what we are doing is that to recognize our expertise very quickly, understanding that even during the time when we were building appliances, we were using commodity hardware and build software with it. So that way we can actually quickly maneuver if we have to move, off with a supplier and different type of hardware. The idea there is to make sure you're on top of your technology without being tied into a particular hardware back in the days. But more importantly now, we're we have moved into the cloud era where basically we're using public cloud as the main foundation for building our microservices, which is available all across the world. They're way better in building data centers than ourselves. So examining our capability, our expertise is really on cybersecurity, not necessarily on building data centers. It's really important to isolate the situation where investment should be going towards more cybersecurity specialties and features and AI capabilities instead of actually worrying about migrating the from data center to public cloud. So we did a lot of that in terms of transitioning and making sure we're able to really expand very quickly in a situation where economy goes down, but when it comes back, you can see in this curve, it can actually drive a lot of demand. So we wanted to make sure our software, our applications, our technology is well positioned to scale. That is really important. Just moving into public cloud is not enough. You have to be ready to scale not only in single cloud, but more likely hybrid scenarios and multiple clouds. So definitely important for the workforce we have for engineering. Yeah.
Thanks, Fleming. And then I'm a big fan of LinkedIn. And I post an awful lot. I share an awful lot. But one of the powers of the new LinkedIn features, you can do surveys. Now, I don't want to do it too often, but I did do this fairly recently, where I basically said, do the ROIs to the CFO, are they required for, say, over $45,000 for a new productivity tool or for a new item? And I was kind of amazed. It's 43% have said yes. And kind of historically would be an answer for all the time. And 36% of the time was half the time. So if it's the same person, same validity point, back to the same CFO, it's not a problem. And then 21% are enjoy it while you have it. It's not yet. So it's kind of neat. So it's neat that LinkedIn polls are able to do that. I put that into a PowerPoint slide to show you what perspective is. And I think I had over 1,600 people respond to it. So kind of powerful, and everyone has the ear to the kind of the grindstone, listening to what's changing out there. Quick one on the next topic I want to go through. I think you're going to see an awful word that comes up from time to time. We call it a hiring freeze or staffing prioritization challenges. So I'll put Georgiana on the stump now. From your perspective, and you've probably validated more solutions net new than anybody I've met in recent history, and done a really good job of quantifying ROIs. What have you done when customers have come to you in your past job and current job saying, I've got staffing freeze challenges. How do I do work prioritization? How do I get through that? And how do I put it together on a single sheet that can maybe share in this remote environment? Do you have any advice for everybody?
Yeah, absolutely. I think in an economic downturn, when you're having to reprioritize staff and you're worried about talent and you're worried about hiring and freezes and all of these words that continue to come up, I think there also has to be a reprioritization on critical projects and what those are for your organization. So I've done a lot of studying on this topic lately. And I just read a study where both some PE firms and a broad set of CEOs were interviewed to say, hey, what are your go-to-market initiatives with an impending economic downturn? And overwhelmingly, the results of that were upsell and expansion into our existing customer base and an investment in our current customers. And so I think as, NRR started that shift where, you really have to keep up with your current customers and make sure that they're happy and grow within those accounts. First, I think that comes with education. I think oftentimes when we discuss this at a really high level, it's just applied that everyone within the organization understands what that means to keep your current customer base happy and why that's so important. It's absolutely, from my experience, it's not the standard and it should never be implied. So I would say in education, do your developers understand why you should continue to grow relationships within your existing customers, your project managers, your ISRs, so that when you make that shift, it's something that people understand why you're doing it. A 5% increase in retention can equal between 25 and 95 improvement in revenue. So it's something that I think going into an economic downturn, it's something that should really be focused on. So, I would say not only a reprioritization in staff and talent, but make sure that you have your critical projects outlined and then staff to those.
Great points. I love your perspective because it's tough on the other side of the fence, justifying and working with your customers, which I know you always do. So A quick one, Elaine, can you kind of comment on that? You had said you had a nice phrase before. What can you not eliminate? And then also before your quick comment, I just want to share, and it's on the slide, the 10 most in demand tech jobs in 2022. Data scientist. We got the occasion to have sushi with a data scientist the other day, and I couldn't believe he actually took the time off to have a meal with us because they're that busy. I know some of the young folks going into the workforce, if there's one career choice as they go through college, being a data scientist and being in big data is really in high demand. And then DevOps engineering, that's something that certainly comes in focus. Can you kind of comment on those, Elaine, about just those 10 high-tech demand jobs and how you persevere through to get the projects done, even though there might be scrutiny around net new hires for people?
Yeah, I think where my mind goes on this, and we've talked about this before in the past, and I talk about it often in the content we put out, is that all projects and all job requisitions are not created equal. Right. So it's having that. And so it goes back to that concept of prioritization. Right. So does this meet the need of our core business, and or does it keep us relevant on the end, on the other side of where we are right now? But again, looking back and then not being afraid to have the unpopular opinion and the unpopular voice to say the thing that maybe people don't want to hear, but that maybe is correct and true and will be better in the long run for the organization. And so when you have that, kind of that prioritization, again, all jobs, all projects, not created equal, but making sure that you are incredibly transparent with your people so they understand what's in this for them. How does this affect them? Also, when we're thinking about through the lens of talent acquisition, and I think this goes back a little bit to what Georgina just said, maybe from a slightly different take, is that when you stop recruiting, and I know in the tech space, we're seeing those hiring freezes, those layoffs, when you stop recruiting, your pipeline dies. It just stops. So when you're not nurturing the pipeline, when it comes time to get that talent and you need it fast, you will struggle more, and net, you will probably spend more money. So I think there has to be some real strategic thought process around what do we do with our recruiting function, right? We can't keep everybody. How do we keep managing that pipeline, having our finger on the market so we know what's going on, what prospects are thinking, what they want. And when we're ready to pick up the phone or reach out, there's a pipeline of talent ready to come and work for us.
Great point. Hey, I also got an in-mail request. It doesn't show up in the text a few seconds ago, telling the story that Amazon started to grow after the last recessionary period when all the different retailers were investing in their e-business initiatives. Think back to circa 2001, 2002, after 9/11, and they all canceled them during this period of time. So just like you said, I'll paraphrase you. You can't shrink to success. You've got to finish the project. You got to put the pedal down as much as you can. Maybe you can't hire a full-time employee, but there's other choices, as you eloquently said for a second ago, Elaine. Omar, you've built up some political clout in your company. And during this tough period of time, you've been able to thrive so that maybe some projects that are under your watch are getting funded where others maybe not. Can you kind of talk about the politics of how you can kind of keep the thriving and keep the justification down when there is some staffing organization changes? Because I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you don't want to stop projects because of the economic challenges. You got to finish the projects and chew the food that's in your mouth before you do it. So you comment on how you've been able to live through that?
Yeah, simply. So I think a couple of things come up. One is, and we've said this phrase numerous times, but just to put a little meat on the bone, ROI, right? I approach everything from a portfolio perspective. Like, is when we do an investment, and whether it's a SaaS application or a project that we need to roll out, we from the onset and working with our vendors, we ask ourselves, well, what's the return rate on this? Is it, going to be $3 for every dollar investment, $5, $10? And that helps us stack rank essentially all the different projects that we have. And based on that, it makes it really easy when we come into periods of economic uncertainty to figure out where we're going to drift our resources, right? Earlier on at the beginning of this talk, I mentioned that phrase min-maxing. I've been a fan of saying this a lot because it really, when you're in these positions where things become uncertain, thinking through that lens makes it easy to realize like where you need to focus, right? Where you need to run. Right. So you mentioned a little bit about politics. And I wouldn't call it so much politics. I just think of it as like, decision making, business decision making. Right. And we do have to look at the horizons in front of us. Typically 1 year, 3 year, 5 year. Where do we want to be? What parts can we rationalize? And you already having that pre-work done of being able to look back at your portfolio and understand the economic value of the different pieces makes it really easy to go into those conversations and make the right decisions.
Nice. Fleming, now that you got a chance to look at these 10 most in-demand tech jobs for 2022, I know I was going to ask a question about new tools and getting justified. Anything that surprised you on that list of 10? Anything that should be there? Anything that you want to reemphasize that it's a really important career choice or really important hiring? Because you had mentioned it's really tough to hire the right people. They're in high demand. Any comment on those?
Yeah, I'm definitely with those 10 because, those 10 type of jobs, they add fuel to innovation that basically creates more jobs, actually. And my thinking here is that, yes, there's a site, maybe a lot of folks are worried about the recession, but I find it, what do you do after the recession, right? You have to be prepared for the future growth. And I think Elaine puts it really well. Don't stop. You have to be constantly nurturing the pipeline and working with young talents, from college, from various different, if there's a fallout from, Facebook or from Tesla, maybe it's time to look at their talent pool. I'm just being very serious, right? Because a lot of these jobs are very, very much needed in all the different kinds of industries. Especially from cybersecurity perspective, I think one area I would, probably will push for is security analyst, right? This is one of those things that basically addresses all the attacks. If you think about doing threat hunting, doing recovery, understanding the threats that's coming to you digitally, all these are something that I would really kind of ask people to pay attention to, because if you lose your sort of your frontier, your defense digitally, you there's a chance for losing the business, right? So I've seen a lot of situations out there where they're not able to recover. So but all these these type of roles here, they're all kind of work together. I think it requires a lot of pipeline building and understanding what's out there and paying a lot of attention and be ready to recruit. So
you brought up an interesting dynamic. I think everyone who's listening to this webinar right now probably has lost a unicorn candidate sometime in the last 2 years to maybe one of the hyperscalers or someone like a Tesla. And then you read in the news, Tesla just recently did some layoffs. So now the pendulum might have turned, as it always does in IT, and maybe more stability type companies might be able to pick up those semi-unicorns, or maybe not go after the unicorn and just get the job done with a candidate that can get the job done and the best expertise for the right person at the right time.
Exactly.
Perfect.
I believe in that. So
perfect. And you've done a great job. Sorry, go ahead, Elaine.
I have a comment as a follow-up to what you just said, is that, and this is a little bit more kind of HR-ish. So, but that kind of leads to this idea of it's not just about recruiting, but it's also about sourcing. And when you're looking at your talent acquisition function, those are actually very distinct roles, recruiter versus sourcer. A sourcer's job is that exactly, right? Precisely to be building those relationships. So when you have that layoff at Tesla, you know exactly who you're calling. You've kept that relationship, you've kept them warm, and now it's time to pick up the phone. A recruiter typically doesn't have the time to be doing that. That's really what a sourcer does. They actually are pretty distinct job descriptions and skill sets. So it's just another thing for people to think about and look at.
Exactly.
Really interesting. And in fact, I was recently on the road in Texas not long ago, and the person we're meeting with is, I'm getting tired of getting outbid by AWS every time we find a unicorn. I tell you what, I don't want you to find me 2 unicorns. Give me a squad, or sorry, I have an accent, pod. You pick whatever word I'm mispronouncing, but give me a pod of 6 people. Let me use 60% of those people, and I'll get a business outcome done, versus trying to hire a unicorn that might renege or might take the job or might be looking at their watch, 12 months into the job. So get the business outcome done. That's what's done. That's what's most paramount. That's what, kind of paraphrasing what I took from that meeting.
Yeah.
But hey, next up on the scrutiny of tools, Georgiana, you've really impressed me in prior dealings with you, and probably impressed an awful lot of other places. How do you help work with customers? You don't really sell to customers, you sell with them, and that's really impressive. So some great business maturity you've shown. How do you use that maturity to your advantage? And when a customer who might not go for budget approval to the CFO that many times, or might be part of a committee, how do you help them put that scrutiny together for new tools that you might be selling, or might you need to collaborate so they all work together so it enhances your experience of what you might be selling?
Yeah, absolutely. So Omar, you answered this question for me, but from a different lens. So with an economic downturn, there's going to be consolidation, there's going to be scrutiny. People are really looking at, hey, what do we really want to bring on if there is going to be a recession? And so it is absolutely imperative that you as a vendor or you as an organization are able to articulate the business value of the technology that differentiates you and your organization within the market. So for me, it's working with, and by the way, I would say as you start to look at, what tools have we brought on with a booming economy, and certainly with the shifts that organizations had to make with COVID, lots of different technologies and tools were brought on. So this is going to have to happen, and it kind of took a back seat. You have to understand what the business value is and what value will be delivered, hence my new role in value realization. But a part of that, I would say, hold the vendor. If you're working with someone external, hold them accountable to helping you build a business analysis, about a value analysis on their technology. And if they can't do that, it might be a good sign, right, moving forward with them, because you need to understand what value will be delivered, which, by the way, if you can understand what value is going to be realized or delivered, then you can start to prioritize staff and timelines and implementation and education. So for me, it's all around collaborating, working with internal teams. Certainly being able to articulate the value sets priority and allows me to go communicate to that to the top. So whether that's internal or external, it's all about the business value for me.
And the good news is, working with you, you actually live what you talk about. So you walk the walk and talk the talk. Thank you for that. Yeah. Omar, I've gone to you many times only because I've seen you live in action persevere through this. Just can you kind of comment about the net new tools that might not make the grade, or how do you get more adoption within it? And then what do you do if you can't?
That might not. Right. Well, I think every organization is different. So what will make the grade for one organization versus another really depends. But I would say at a high level that every organization, even out if you're not a technology first organization, will benefit from things such as cloud. You'll benefit from artificial intelligence. You'll benefit from consistent investments in automation, which is core to typical operations roles, right? Anything you can do to kind of reduce the efficiency, reduce the amount of CapEx you have to invest is always a win. But, at the end of the day, like some tools that you shouldn't be investing in, I think, wow, that's actually a tricky question. Obviously, I said this, it differs on different roles, but looking at overlap in portfolio is important. So, and I think times of economic uncertainty, you want to look at that. Do you have tools that are probably doing the same thing, right? I think those are candidates that you'd want to look at and revise and figure out if there's, one tool that can do, the role of certain things. But I think it's easier to look at and I'm more of Ken, you probably know this about me, I'm more of a glass half full person, right? I'd like to focus on the part of the curve where there's the opportunity, right? And look at those tools, right? The things that are kind of on that tail, they'll kind of come out. They'll come out over time, especially, we've talked about, realizing value, having those conversations with the business. If you're having those conversations, you should kind of already have a good sense on like, these are the tools that we probably should not renew, right? If you're looking at it from a SaaS portfolio perspective. But the things that will stack to the top, you will see, and I would say this applies to all lanes of industry, are that investments in cloud are going to save you. It's huge operational savings there. And the AI, it's here. It's been here for years, and it's only going to get stronger. Fast movers are going to benefit if you're taking advantage of that technology as part of how you run and manage your business.
Omar, you teed up a good point. We recently, the CFO and I went through a full analysis of all the different tools. We basically said anything that was going to automate or led with AI, we're keeping and we're doubling down on. Anything that was not quite being used as much as it should be, we were going to quiesce or potentially retire. And it was really easy. Just automate. Hey, thank you. Next question here. Are you interested in a free cloud cost assessment? Public use case required. But shows us no free lunch. That's great. Just explain what that is, and I'll show a slide in just a second. As Omar eloquently said, there's such advantages to cloud. There really is. Burstability, ability to go up and down based on the economy. Huge upside of using the cloud. Sign Now, a separate company that I ran a few years ago, we were 100% on the cloud. A lot of people listening to this call are cloud native. When you do that, though, there are certain inefficiencies that build up over time, some certain over-provisioning, some certain extra asset retention, some reserves that are put in, that actually a wise Sherpa can come in and actually give an assessment and say you get better efficiency. So just like some people come to Taos or other companies for managed services to get some extra discretionary spend, to get a higher SLA, sometimes people go to Taos and other companies that actually do what I would call FinOps. Basically, show me how my current cloud rate can actually be reduced and give me some money back. Because I need that extra money and extra funding, because you don't have as much money as you think in the overall IT budget. You don't have as much discretionary funds. Give me some more discretionary funds so I can invest in, I don't know, maybe a new mobile-centric app or something that actually invests in AI or automation. But it looks like 75% of the people listening are interested in a cloud cost assessment, or FinOps as it's also called. 25% have other uses for their time. That we respect that. You may not be in the cloud just yet, but we'll have a slide to talk about in just a second. Good. And then once you go through the in-tech demand jobs, could we just go to the last slide, please, or second to last slide? Good. Unfortunately, we are in a period of time that people are attending webinars like this. There's some fear in critical projects only. I don't think it's this. I think the overall group, and I'll ask for the final points and final go forward type advice at the very end. But I think what you're hearing from everybody is, don't kill your project, don't kill your killer advantage, don't kill anything that's going to drive revenue and give a definite business outcome to your environment. Just create some of the projects that are not driving the revenue, not driving the business outcome as you face these economic challenges. So I think that's a pretty litmus test as far as the IT index for the great inspection. And next slide, please. And just to pictorially represent what a cloud cost assessment really is, it looks at any over provision that might be in place, any extra capacity reserve that might be in place, and any type of automation that can be improved. I think Omar teed it up, and I kind of also evangelized it as well. This is a time to automate. This is a time where career marquee companies are made. We're able to automate and do the right things now efficiently, a little more scrutiny and a little bit great inspection in play. But we do offer a cloud cost optimization, and versus the six-figure that we normally charge for it, we are looking to put a few lucky people that attend this webinar into a public case study to showcase this, where you actually get money back in the over provisioning and the over reserving, and putting some automation in some ways you may not be as seasoned on. The good news about Taos, we're the highest level partnership at AWS, Azure, and GCP, so we have the knowledge and have over 800 technologists on the bench that can use that expertise to put this against it. So thanks for going through that. A final wrap-up question for everybody. What's the go-forward plan? I know everyone's reiterated a lot of good advice, but if you had one magic golden rule to give to everybody, what would it be during these turbulent times? I'll start with Elaine.
Thanks, Ken. All right, so I guess mine's going to be like 1.5, so I won't even say 2, but one is I'd say lean, but not at the expense of innovation. Right, so it's that kind of that finding that fine balance, lean but not the expense of innovation. And then just kind of a piggyback onto that is companies that may have historically gone offshore are probably finding challenges with that because of global inflation. So bringing it back around to just your human capital, this might be a really great time to think about stretch assignments and how you give people new opportunities to try different kinds of things.
Wow, I love that. Run lean, but don't forget innovation. It's a great time to really double down on innovation. That's great. Georgiana, I think we'd like to hear your final thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely. Elaine, love that point on the stretch projects. That's a great point. For me, it would be 2 things. It would be to remain agile. So I've been in the startup world and in big corporations, and there's a lot going on in the world outside of just a recession. So to remain agile and to be able to pivot is critical. My biggest point of advice would be to understand your customer value proposition and to understand that just like strategy, it changes every 6 to 12 months. And so you need to revisit it, because a word like recession can change your customer's perception on value. So you need to understand what's happening in the world. You need to understand your customer value proposition and understand that it changes often. Great.
Thanks, Georgiana. Hey, I got an in-mail request while this was going on from Julie. hey, your FinOps or cloud cost optimization, how long does it take, and does it use your actual data if we provide it to you? The good news is it takes about 4 to 6 weeks, and we do use your own data. So this is not an abstract. This is a real world. You're provided NDA information on both sides. So thanks for that. Thanks for the question. Thanks, Georgina. Solid points. I appreciate it. Next up, Fleming, any final advice for everybody out there from an engineering perspective or a business perspective?
Yeah, definitely. I would suggest innovate on the things that you help differentiate your products for your customers against your competitors, and outsource and maybe automate the things that's redundant, and maybe sometimes you find it better off to actually use some help. The other one is also think about your customers, because they're also facing the same challenge, right? So provide your software, your capabilities in a easier to use and a much more accessible type of way. Even it's complicated technology, try to make it so the UX is actually very straightforward, and it's more I would say simplify IT in that sense, or simplify cybersecurity from my perspective. So think about those 2 points.
Great. And you're a pretty modest person, but I did see a recent survey that the cost per outage is well over $100,000 of impact. And that's not counting reputation loss to the company. That's just on real world bottom line impact. And so again, investing in companies like Cisco, their security, investing in companies like Barracuda, depending on where you're in the market and your appetite for the different products choices, I think you can invest in this period of time because you want to keep everyone safe. So thanks, Fleming. Appreciate your perspective. And then last but not least, Omar, what pearls of wisdom do you have that is kind of a mantra for everybody during these tough times to keep it going, keep thriving?
Yeah, well, if you're faced, I spent a lot of my time looking inwards as an operations person, trying to figure out how we can provide efficiencies for the business. And one of the things that I sort of been circling around, and this kind of came up during the pandemic, but I think it's even more relevant in an era of economic uncertainty. That's looking in and making sure you have a core understanding what your purpose is, right? What is the purpose of your team? What's the purpose of your business, and how do you reflect that purpose out towards your customers? What value you're providing your customers? Being able to look at it from all those different facets and ensuring that the entire organization is aligned around purpose makes it real easy to do take a lot of the advice that everyone else has shared, which is looking at ROIs, figuring out which are the key things you need to invest in. What are your operational efficiencies versus what are your strategic go-to-market initiatives? All those things I think are definitely second order from. I would advise everyone if maybe you have a couple of mission statements out there, make sure try to see how deep and how well aligned the rest of the organization are around those, and are they still relevant, right? I think digging into those pieces makes everything else sort of fall into place. So.
Good. And I got a couple other text questions as well. Boy, this feature is really helpful. Thank you. Contact us for the free offer. We'll onboard you, like we said, 4 to 6 weeks, use your everything, and then we do ask you to share your story. So as long as it's allowable within your PR constraints with your company, we can make that happen. That's the offer from the folks that are attending the webinar today. Like everything, the offer is not available forever. We have to make sure that it's done before August 30th. So time's of the essence while things are up in front of us. Final slide, please. And then we say at Taos, we love doing it. Our average customer's been with us for 9 years, have over 4,000 customers. We always say, what's next? And the legacy, obviously, of Taos over 34 years is here in the Bay Area. I'm in Armonk, New York today. Taos is now been in the world headquarters, but Taos' headquarters in beautiful Silicon Valley in San Jose. So anyways, I want to say on behalf of the panelists, thank you again so much, Elaine. Thank you so much, Fleming. Thanks so much, Georgiana. Thank you so much, Elaine. Thank you, Omar. We appreciate everything you do. Thank you for your insights. Thank you. You have a lot of things and choices as far as your time. I want to thank you for everything you're doing. The best that we can do, and we'll send a recording around to everybody as far as the link. Thank you for the ops team putting this together. It's a very easy vehicle to work with in the webinar. But just to kind of galvanize the whole message behind it is, when you're facing these different choices, we put together a quick video. It's only, I think it's 75 seconds. We'd like to end it with just 75 seconds. And again, contact us if you'd like to go forward with that FinOps or cloud cost advisory at no cost type opportunity that's available to someone in the webinar. But without further ado, we'll go on and mute and we'll put on the video. But thank you again to the panelists, and thank you more importantly to the people attending today. And make sure you send the recording to your executives and make things happen. As we move into an unsure economy, we face the intersection of the Great Resignation and the Great Inspection. It is scrutiny of all discretionary funds and a new ROI analysis of all net new hires. With this new reality, at risk are money-making projects, customer-centric applications, and even go-lives that were critical only months ago. With even less now, you have to accomplish even more. So many questions are going to arise, like, how do you merge ServiceNow workflow instances to streamline your recent acquisitions? How do you complete SAP basis work when you have a hiring freeze? How do you make data pipelines accelerate via Snowflake and Click without seasoned staff? How are you going to get QA done at maximum scale? Who's going to deploy Terraform when you've had recent resignations? Has your company rallied around OpenShift, but the leader has gone on to a more urgent project? How do you roll out a managed SOC and a managed NOC with tight budgets and hire a proven team? How do you attract in-demand expensive data scientists with budget constraints? How do we securely migrate to the cloud with full compliance? And are you 100% sure you're not overspending on monthly cloud spend? Well, you can be assured that Taos has the answers to deliver all these business outcomes and get your project finished. We are the burst of energy you need to win and thrive in a sea of uncertainty. We offer clear visibility into your ROI that works within your company for justification and will win over the executive team. Finishing projects and a clear business outcomes, that's what's in for you. That is what's in it for you all the time with Taos.